Welcome to Scrunchy Time. I'm Nicole Hegstead, your fertility advocate. After 6 years of infertility and 3 miscarriages, I decided that I needed to become the advocate for my own body. If you're exhausted from struggling to get pregnant and want to know more about how I can help, check out my website at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And I'm Bridget May, your children's health expert. My son was born with a heart condition that led to 3 open heart surgeries, cath labs, a tracheostomy, and a ventilator. After being fed up with mixed opinions, I became my children's own advocate. If your child's health is lacking, then check out my website at www.bridgetmay.com to find out more how I can help. Put your hair up and pay attention while we discuss today's hottest topics concerning female hormones and healthy kiddos.
We aren't silky.
We aren't crunchy. We're scrunchy. Hi, welcome back to Scrunchy Time. This is episode 8. So I'm here. I'm back from last week after having my children up. So and I'm settled in to my new home after being with Nicole. But that was fun. We got to be together last week and we had our guest speaker on and all of that. It was really fun. But this week we want to talk about Nicole. We want to focus on her, and she just put out a class. It's called From Clomid to IVF, and she's going to tell us a little bit about it today. I'm really excited about this because I get to learn a little bit more. I hear bits and pieces that she's like putting it all together, but now I get to hear the big picture. So super excited. So why don't you tell us why you made this class?
Yeah. So, goodness, I think it was back in the late summer. I saw a post on Instagram that was talking about a woman was starting IVF and she was starting her antibiotics and her birth control. And I was like, wait, what? And I scrolled through the post and she was explaining that sometimes when you start IVF, you use birth control for a cycle and then you do like a round of antibiotics just to make sure that everything is cleaned out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make a class about this. Like, I have to look into this more. This is not okay. This is really, really wrong. And it just kind of grew from there. I started like really paying attention to people's Facebook and Instagram posts and started researching for myself what the process of fertility treatments and what fertility drugs people or fertility specialists use. And just started putting a whole bunch of stuff together and then started looking into obviously statistics and things like that, and just formed a class. And like I said, it's from Clomid to IVF. So it's the whole fertility process of what they start with from the moment you walk into the doctor's office until you end up with IVF. Or I even go into surrogacy options at the end and things like that. And I think the biggest and most important thing is that for each of the drugs, for each of the treatments, there is a counter natural way to do what each of these drugs are doing. And the biggest thing too is that it's all artificial. Like everything that these drugs are doing, they're all artificial hormones. And so it's a lot like putting, so let's say you have a hormone imbalance that's causing infertility, and then we give you an artificial hormone, and some of these aren't even the hormones you need. Like, it's not even like, okay, you're low in progesterone, so we're going to give you an artificial form of progesterone. Usually it's something like, we're going to block your hypothalamus from thinking that it has estrogen in your body, or we're going to shut down your ovaries. There is literally a drug that they put you on to shut down your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus, and your ovaries while you're doing IVF, because they don't want you to ovulate. So they give you, I'll take a step back and re-explain that one a little bit. They give you a bunch of drugs to make you ovulate a whole bunch of eggs. And then they go in and they harvest all those eggs. Well, they don't want your ovaries to continue producing more eggs and to ovulate more, and then for you to get pregnant naturally or with a whole bunch of babies. And so then they shut down your entire reproductive system, including the major organs in your body that create all of your sex hormones, to wait until they turn them back on to do the next cycle. So you can imagine how insane that is to your body while they're doing these IVF treatments.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, wow. I just I know you've shared some of that with me, but I just it makes me so angry. Like, I just don't understand why they think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got started with, like, you saw that they put you on antibiotics, which we, all know we should actually do a podcast on antibiotics specifically. I don't think we've done that yet. But antibiotics are clearly never a good idea. Your body can only handle 2 antibiotics in the course of its life, and then after that they're pretty much ineffective. And why would you wipe out the good and the bad? Like, hello.
Well, and that's you are completely wiping out all of your good bacteria right before you plan to get pregnant, and then hopefully in 9 months give birth, where you will be transferring all of this good bacteria to the baby. But no, you cleaned all that out way back when. Also, good bacteria helps you to digest your food. So in cases where you would be pregnant and wanting to get the most nutrition out of your food, where you'd be nauseous, where you'd be exhausted, where you'd have all the symptoms of pregnancy, you would want to be able to break down your food as best as possible. And no, we're going to wipe all that out, so that way that is all damaged and injured for that pregnancy. It makes absolutely no sense. And the concept of there might be a bacteria, or we're going to clean you out just in case. No, I'm sorry. Antibiotics should not be used unless there's a bacterial infection and your life is in danger. End of story. Like, sorry, rabbit trail, but we don't use antibiotics just in case. There's no reason to do that. Like, that's the same as putting, oh gosh, I can't even think of an example of why that would be okay. Like.
Well, it's never okay. I mean, it's clearly saying that the body doesn't know what it's doing. We're treating our bodies as if it's stupid, and your bodies are not stupid. So as you said earlier, there are natural ways to fix this. And instead, I like to say it, I probably say it way too much, and it's maybe not a good thing to say, but I say it, the doctors play God. And that's literally what they're saying. They're saying, nope, your ovaries don't know what they're doing, so we're going to give you a drug and we're going to take control.
Yep.
And they do not need to take control. Our bodies want to reproduce. We were created to reproduce.
Yes.
So why are they taking control? Like, instead of fixing the problem. It's just like anything, with I can't think of an example now either. We're doing this at night, by the way, guys. It's really late here. All the children are sleeping, so the ice cream has been eaten. So, here's how well our brains are working right now. But anyway, rabbit trail. But like, I can't even think of an example either. But I just don't understand why we treat our bodies as if they're stupid, and and why we have to say there's something better. You probably know, like, when did they start doing all of this? We've been around for thousands of years, and all of a sudden in the last how many years do we all of a sudden think we have to have all these drugs in order to get pregnant?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they started IVF in the 1970s. I didn't look up each individual drug as to when it started. I know that Provera, that's another really interesting one. Provera was approved in 1959, which is so Provera is an artificial form of progesterone that doctors will put you on to start your period. I'm putting this in quotes, start your period. So when you go in, let's say you go in for IUI or IVF, and they say, okay, well, call us when your period starts, and then we'll start you on this cycle. But you're not getting your period. You probably have an irregular period. That's very common with women with PCOS or women with infertility problems anyway. And so you're not getting your period. And so they say, well, here's a prescription for Provera. Take it for, I think it's 8 days. I think that's how long I took it when I was on it. They did this to me. You take it for 8 days, and then you stop, and within the next 3 days, you'll get your period. And it worked amazing. I was like, I can't believe how well that works. Like, that was amazing. Why don't we just make your periods regular like that? Just use this once a month and use that to make our periods regular. That was a long time ago, and I've learned a lot since then. And I'm really happy I've learned a lot since then. First of all, it's fake progesterone. Second of all, it is the Provera part of the Depo-Provera shot, which is a contraceptive. And there are articles online where doctors are saying that the Provera shot is not, or the Provera pill is not a contraceptive. But if you go on drugs.com and you compare Depo-Provera to Provera, they're both listed as a contraceptive. They both have identical side effects. Depo-Provera was approved by the FDA in 1960, and Provera was approved in 1959. So they were both approved a year later. They are recognized as two separate drugs, but they are both contraceptives classified by the FDA.
We were trying to get pregnant, right?
Yep, exactly. So in a way, I've been on a contraceptive pill, which is a shame, but obviously I was not told that I was on a contraceptive. And that's the way
they would never tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. They would never say that. In fact, there's doctors saying that it's not. So, but this is what they're putting you on to start your period, to start the cycle for IUI or IVF. So like, if a lot of women have like a cycle or 2 cycles or 6 cycles that are covered by their insurance in a year. So if they're going to put you on Provera in order to start that cycle, if it's covered by insurance, you're ruining that whole cycle because you're putting a contraceptive into your body. Furthermore, you're not actually having a period. That's why I put it in quotes back then, a few minutes ago, because you're not actually shedding an egg. You didn't ovulate. So there is no egg to shed. You can't make yourself ovulate by giving yourself progesterone. You can make yourself shed the uterine lining. But then, so let's say you do, here's another thing I go over in the class. Even if you have irregular cycles, your body is still on a cycle. Your body still has its hormones that go up and down at a certain time, and your body is always trying to fix itself. Your body is always trying to get back to the normal 28-day cycle. It's what we're doing to our bodies that messes it up. So your body is saying, okay, I'm out of whack, I'm trying to get back, and then you throw false progesterone into your body and you make yourself have a period and you shed out that uterine lining. And what if the next week you ovulate? Now there's nowhere for that egg to implant, but you could have gotten pregnant. So I'm just throwing that out there for women who are really trying to conceive. The last thing you want to do is fill your body with fake progesterone so that way you can start a quote period and then start your IUI cycle. Because again, you didn't have a period, you're probably going to ovulate later, and then now you've just put a contraceptive in your body. So just don't do it. Like if you really have to do IUI, if you really have to do IVF, which I also go through in the class, not the best ways to get pregnant. Don't start it off with Provera. Don't start any cycles off with Provera ever. And don't ask your doctor for Provera.
Wow. Yeah. That makes no sense whatsoever. Isn't Clomid similar to that too, where it was like, it does something with the uterine lining, like it thins it?
Yes, it will. It can thin, it won't thin the uterine lining. It will thicken your cervical mucus. So semen cannot get to the ovulated egg if you ovulate. Now that it's more of a can kind of issue with Clomid. The biggest issue with Clomid is you have excess estrogen in your body, which is not allowing you to ovulate because the hypothalamus, which is in your head, detects when your estrogen drops. And when your estrogen drops, the hypothalamus says to the pituitary gland, hey, release the follicle or release the luteinizing hormone and release an egg down there, way down there. And so it goes through the chain of command, and the pituitary gland releases luteinizing hormone, which triggers the ovaries to release an egg. But the hypothalamus only does that when estrogen drops. So what Clomid does is it blocks the receptor sites in the hypothalamus, making the hypothalamus think that the estrogen has dropped, even though it hasn't. You still have just as much estrogen in your body. So yeah, there's a lot of huge problems with that, because then you're going to have a baby with an estrogen dominance through your whole pregnancy. There's not a lot of evidence, but I don't see how that wouldn't affect your daughter or son's future fertility. Especially if it's a boy. And a lot of this is bad estrogen. That's the other issue. It's not like it's good estrogen and your body is just out of whack. It's bad estrogens from things like BPAs, milk that has been fed antibiotics and all the growth hormones. So we've got all those bad estrogens. And what was that?
And they build up on you too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like it's extra bad. It's like building up continuously.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, so that's what Clomid does.
Okay. So could you give us like a brief outline of all the things you go over in your class?
Yeah. So I start off with just a welcome video. I go through like surgical options and getting your husband or partner tested and the importance of that. And then I do Clomid, and then I do Femera, which is another interesting drug that is actually not been approved by the FDA for use in fertility treatments. It is actually a breast cancer drug. And actually the company that makes it, Novartis, I believe, has sent letters out to fertility specialists saying this is not approved by the FDA and we recommend you not use it for fertility treatments, but they are anyway. I'll just leave that right there for you. Yeah, again, Novartis, the company that creates Femera, has sent letters out to fertility specialists saying, please do not use this in fertility treatments. Femera, yeah, also known as letrozole. So if you've been put on that at all, it was not approved for fertility treatments. So I talk about that, and then I believe I talk about Provera at that point, and then we go into the IUI stuff and how, because IUI is usually the next step. So I go into all of that. We talk about gonadotropin releasing hormones and gonadotropin releasing hormone agonists, which are the drugs that shut down your ovaries and your pituitary gland and all of that. And then in the next set of videos, I go through IVF, GIFT, and ZIFT. Those are all three of the types of ART or assisted reproductive technologies that we use in America. GIFT and ZIFT are a little different from IVF. They have a different way of fertilizing the egg, and so they break it down, but IVF is usually the one that's used. And then after that, I go into surrogacy options and third-party options and egg donations and sperm donations and things like that. There's not a lot of pros or cons in surrogacy other than the stuff I already talked about in IVF, because you're going to be doing an IVF cycle in order to use a donor. But there's a lot of emotions that are around third-party options. So something definitely to think about before you just jump into, talk about with your spouse, talk about with the third party. Like, there's a lot, especially if someone else is carrying your baby, or if you're using donor sperm. Like, it just becomes really an emotional issue with people involved, because you're removing your partner from the equation, or you're including someone else in the equation, and it just is very interesting. So there's a lot of
yeah, that's really good. That's really interesting to bring that up. That's really good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I had for questions. Did you want to add anything else specific about your class, or?
I don't think so. It's $47 for the whole class. It comes out on March 1st. So if you order it now, you'll get it delivered straight to your inbox on that day. After that day, if you're listening to this later, you can order it at any time and it'll get sent straight to your inbox at that point. So you can get a hold of that by going on my website to the programs page. So that would be www.nicolehegsted.com/programs. And then if you scroll down to about the middle of the page, it'll say From Clomid to IVF, and there's a button to order it there. And I will put a link on this video as well. So you can see it there. So yeah.
Awesome. So afterwards, if someone is going through your course and they realize that they don't want to do the option that they're continuing to pursue, or they have more questions than what you have in the class or something like that, is there a way for them to get a hold of you, or do you have another class following up on that, or what is your best way to pursue that afterwards?
Absolutely, yeah. So I would encourage you to schedule an introduction call. The best way to do that is through my website. There's also links there to that on the Contact Me page. But especially if you have specific questions about, certain drugs that you're using or have used or are interested in using, I can just answer those on an introduction call for you. If you're interested in pursuing the natural route for each of these drugs, or the natural way to get pregnant, obviously I coach women on how to do that. So that's like my number one, what I do. And I always encourage women to schedule an introduction call before we just jump into coaching so we can both get to know each other. I call it a two-way interview where we both get to see if we want to work with each other, because I want to see if I want to work with you and you want to see if you want to work with me. It's the same thing. So I definitely encourage an introduction call, and I can answer any questions that you have and point you in the right direction or stuff like that. So definitely do that if you get through the course and there's still questions for you.
Awesome. Cool. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, cool. Let's see. March 1st. That'll be this weekend then, right?
Next weekend. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Also, I will add, if you get through the course and I did not address a fertility drug or treatment that you have been on or been told to go on, please let me know. I tried to do as much research as I could when I was making this class, and I asked a bunch of women for what drugs and fertility treatments were you on, and they answered back everything I had researched. But if you were suggested to do something or tried something that I missed, I would love to hear more, and I'll add a video in for you and all of that. So definitely open to additions there if I missed something.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, don't most of the drugs that people are on only have like a 10% success rate? Some of them do.
Yep.
So I'm sure they're going to be coming out with more to fix that.
Probably. Yeah. The highest statistic is for IVF is 43%. And that's if you're under the age of 35, which obviously most women doing IVF are not under the age of 35. So
wow.
The statistics are pretty poor. They're and it goes as low as 3% for IUI.
Oh my goodness.
It's pretty bad. Depending on your age, I think 10% is the average for IUI. And then Clomid is like 37%, I want to say. They get pregnant and carry to term. No, it's 29% get pregnant and carry to term. 37% get pregnant, 29% carry to term. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. The statistics for fertility drugs and fertility treatments are very poor. And
wow.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not worth, and the reason I point that out so much in the class is it's not worth destroying your body for such poor chances of getting pregnant. It's just not.
Right. Yeah. And you'd never hear statistics about a natural, like how successful it is. I mean, you have 100% success rate right now, but you're never going to hear that from other people, like on going natural and what they changed and stuff. Right. So insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, well, awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, check out Nicole's website and order that class. And, I think that's everything. So we'll see you next week on episode 9. So
thanks for joining us.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on today's podcast.
If you'd like to know more about our programs or watch the podcast in video form, you can visit our websites,
where we also share links and resources concerning the different topics that we have discussed.
Check me out at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And check me out at www.bridgetmay.com. See you next time.